Hi there. I had a plan to do another YouTube video so quickly, but in fact I recorded my 12th Doctor one last week. I just had a lot of trouble uploading it onto YouTube, well, I work nights, so I've just sort of woken up at 4:30 in the afternoon and had the very sad news of the death of Christopher Lee. And as he was very much a favourite actor of mine, I thought I'd just put up a very quick, fairly short video, just to say how sad I am at the news. I think if you're of my sort of age in the UK, sort of just slightly too young for those late 70s BBC Two screenings of the Hammer horror films, then but your first exposure to Christopher Lee would have been The Man with the Golden Gun, a concert favourite of ITV on bank holidays. Christopher Lee is fantastic in it. It's not the best Bond film by a considerable margin, but every time he's on screen, he's absolutely brilliant, mesmerising, charismatic, the perfect dark mirror to Bond. And he also brings out the best of Roger Moore. Their scene at the dinner table together is a perfect scene to show to people who've tried saying Roger Moore can't act or didn't bother to be more than himself in the Bond films. And that was certainly, for me, very much my first exposure to Christopher Lee. Of course, as somebody who grew up in the early 90s, one of the other first things I've seen him in was when he was in the remake of The Tomorrow People. He did a two-part story in the Christian Smith version of that. I'm sort of fattened in The Tomorrow People in the 90s, a rather crap CITV cheap programme. Sort of for most of the time I was growing up, Christopher Lee was, like Michael Caine, was in a period of basically doing any old shit for the money. He had a very long period there where most of his films are quite awful. Peaking of Police Academy 7, Mission to Moscow. But much like Caine and those other actors who are very prolific, Lee was never less than brilliant in the roles he did. Indeed, Man with the Golden Gun is a perfect example of him being brilliant in a less than fantastic film. Always brought his A game, always watchable, always interesting. A man who was fully deserving of his later career renaissance thanks to Tim Burton and Peter Jackson. And sort of his more recent films, Star Wars prequels, in films where you have very many good actors giving terrible performances, Christopher Lee is one of a few people to walk away with his dignity intact as Count Dooku. In terms of his golden age, in the 60s and 70s, I've never really been able to get into the Hammer Dracula and Frankenstein films, but I do enjoy his second guest appearance in The Avengers, the Interrogators episode. He's absolutely fantastic in that. Also, just last week I watched the Hammer version of The Hound of the Baskervilles for the first time, and he's oddly miscast as Henry Baskerville in that. The part's basically a patsy. It's supposed to be Canadian. He doesn't do the accent. Apparently he could do a very good American accent, so it's a bit odd that he didn't in that film. But even though, he's a big, strong, strapping, charismatic guy who looks like he could rip the Hound apart with his bare hands, he's just effortlessly cool as this English nobleman in it. So even though it's not a part it really plays with strengths, he's still very good in that very enjoyable adaptation of Hound of the Baskervilles. But in terms of my favourite lead Christopher Lee roles, it'd be great now if I were going to go against the grain and say The Howling 2 or something like that. But no, I'm afraid my favourite films of his are the obvious ones. The Devil Rides Out, And of course, The Wicker Man. Two fantastically brilliant examples of 60s and 70s horror. Devil Rides Out is sort of more conventional film number 2, and of course it's a Hammer film, but you're basically watching Christopher Lee go up against Charles Gray, and both of them eating the scenery with great relish. You've got Lee clearly enjoying and loving the fact he's playing the hero for once. It's a nice spooky film. The Blu-ray unfortunately does do a Star Wars special edition with special effects for some reason. But it is just a fantastically spooky, clever film. The Wicker Man, of course, is, I believe, Lee's favourite film out of all the ones he did. And it's completely unlike any other film ever made. Again, he gets to play against off a very good actor in Edward Woodward. He's effortlessly charismatic. The whole end sequence of the film, he's in a dress and is still effortlessly threatening, and you can't take his eyes off him. He's singing, he's charming, he's terrifying. It's a brilliant film anyway, even beyond what the two things Britt Ekland brings to it. But Christopher Lee himself is brilliant in that film, and he's a large part of the reason why we still have a decent copy of it, and why it's become re-evaluated as a classic, because he has spent a lot. He spent, I have to use some past tense there, a large part of his life championing it. It's a shame so few people in that film are now still with us. Indeed, I suppose, of course, of all the great 60s and 70s horror actors, Lee was the last one left. Peter Cushing, Vincent Price, most of the leading ladies as well. There might be a couple left, because of course they usually cast much younger and more buxom. That sort of entire generation now departed. In fact, what makes me feel particularly sad is that he was a contemporary, exactly, of Patrick Macnee, who was also 93. They were at Eton together. That sort of makes me realise that Mr. Macnee probably isn't long with us either, and that's sort of creates a melancholy feel, because he's another one of my favourite actors. So that's sort of, I'm sure I'm not really adding anything original or especially inspiring to the many tributes Christopher Lee has received there, but I did just want to mark the passing of this brilliant actor. I'm going to go watch The Devil Rides Out now. Thank you for all the great performances, Christopher Lee. You will be missed.